Hello and welcome back to Humans in Society. This video focuses on the topic Persian War under the subject World History. First, let us look at things in perspective. Persia is now known as modern-day Iran, but in olden times, the Persian Empire expanded all the way to the Indus and Hindu Kush valleys of India in the east, the Nile Valley of Egypt in the south, the Caucasus Mountains of Russia in the north, and the Balkan Peninsula of Europe in the west. So, this big orange area in the map is the entire Persian Empire, and is governed by one ruler. Greece is the little green spot at the western side of the Persian Empire. It is a collection of city-states that are using democracy to govern themselves as a people. Now, why did the war happen? Some Greeks lived in the western part of Asia Minor. This is now known as modern-day Turkey. Persia forcibly occupied these Greek colonies in Asia Minor and forced them to serve under the empire. But in 499 BCE, the colonies rebelled against Persia because they wanted to preserve their democratic governments. So Athens, from Greece, sent soldiers in support of the colonies in Asia Minor. Emperor Darius easily defeated the rebellion of the colonies. He wanted to punish Athens for sending soldiers to back up the rebels. Soldiers were trained for 2 years and sent to Greece. They set sail for the shores of Marathon. This is an artist rendition of Emperor Darius the Great of Persia. The first Persian invasion of Greece happened when the Persian army sailed the Aegean Sea to Marathon in 490 BCE. And thus began the Battle of Marathon. Athens asked the surrounding poleis for aid. Sparta was in the middle of a religious festival and would take up to 9 days to arrive. The other city-states did not send help, seeing as it was not their war. Athens had to take on the Persian army on its own in the shores of Marathon. In the beginning, there was a clear mismatch between the Persian army, who has 25,000 troops, and the Athenian army, that has only 10,000 troops. What do you think? Does Athens stand a chance against Persia? Yes, they did. Athens secured the first victory for Greece. The Athenian soldiers did not separate their army, and they had a solid defense. This surprised the Persian soldiers, which were unorganized and all over the place, seeing as they only trained for 2 years. The Persians depended on their archers and their cavalry, who cannot make an offensive move. The Persian soldiers withdrew against the Athenian army. The Phalanx secured the Athenian win over the Persian army despite their mismatch. Phalanx is a defensive military formation developed by the Greeks, wherein a body of troops composed of infantry, armed with spears or any long weapons, and heavy shields are standing and moving in close formation. The long spears prevented the horses from destroying their formation, and the shields prevented the arrows from hurting the soldiers. This is an artist rendition of the Battle of Marathon, wherein the Athenian army forced the Persian soldiers back to the Aegean Sea. In the end, the death toll was 6,400 dead soldiers for the Persians against 192 for Athens. Emperor Darius went back to Persia and never returned. The modern Marathon can trace its roots from the Battle of Marathon. It is said that an Athenian soldier named Phidippides ran from Marathon back to Athens, a distance of 26 miles or 57 kilometers, to bring the news of the win. He died from exhaustion after delivering the news to the city. As an aftermath of the Battle of Marathon, Darius never returned to Greece. His son, Xerxes, plotted the revenge. In 480 BC, the Persians returned to Greece, led by Xerxes, who was now the emperor of the Persian Empire. This time, he brought more soldiers with him. Because of the movie 300, many people think that Xerxes looks like the rendition of actor Rodrigo Santoro on the left, but in fact, the true image of Xerxes is closer to the artist's rendition of the painting on the right. For the second Persian invasion of Greece, led by Xerxes, this time they went through land to go around the other end of Greece. The Greeks met the Persians in Thermopylae. The Battle of Thermopylae signals the beginning of the second Persian invasion in Greece. Thermopylae is a narrow passage that led to Greece. On one side is a wall of mountain, and the opposite side is a deep ravine. For 2 days, the Greeks successfully held the Persians back, until a Greek trader named Ephialtes showed the Persians a secret way through the pass. The Persians used the secret passage and held a surprise attack in the Greek camp. Led by Leonidas, 300 Spartan soldiers and 1,100 Boeotians fought the Persians to allow the other soldiers to escape back to Greece. This is an artist's rendition of the Battle of Thermopylae, where the Persians and the Greeks fought in the Greek camp. As popularized by the movie, all the soldiers that stayed behind perished in the battle. With the death of the soldiers that made up the defense, the Persians were finally able to enter Greece. The soldiers destroyed all of the poleis they passed through on their way to Athens. They burned the city-state Athens to the ground. After that, what do you think the Greeks did? As their city-state burned, the citizens and soldiers of Athens, led by Themistocles, rowed their ships to the island of Salamis. The Persians followed the Greeks to sea, and thus began the Battle of Salamis. This battle highlighted Athenian ingenuity in war tactics. The Athenian ships sailed to Salamis to escape the Persians. When the Persian ships followed them, the Athenian ships turned around and forced collision with their enemies. The bigger Persian ships cannot evade the smaller and faster Athenian ships, which resulted in half the fleet going down as their bottom hulls are smashed. Xerxes returned to Persia and left the army to his general Mardonius. This is an artist's rendition of the Battle of Salamis, where the Greek ships smashed into the Persian ships. In 479 BCE, the final battle between Persia and Greece happened in Plataea in the city-state of Boeotia, as depicted in this artist's rendition. The Battle of Plataea is the final land battle in the Second Persian invasion. By this time, the Greek and Persian army are almost equal in numbers, with other city-states joining Athens and Sparta and increasing their numbers, while the larger Persian army dwindled. Athens and Sparta led the other city-states against the Persians. The military forces of Greece, led by Pausanias of Sparta, were able to overcome the Persian army, who finally retreated when General Mardonius was killed in battle. And thus ends the Persian War. Let us check your understanding of the lesson. How did a smaller Greek army win against the more powerful Persian army? You can pause this video while you think about it, as the next slide will show the answers. The answer to why the Greeks were able to win against the Persians are as follows. The Greeks were able to defend well because they have better knowledge of their territory. They had better trained soldiers and tactical generals compared to the Persian army, and they exploited the element of surprise every chance they get. Any variation close to these answers will be accepted. The ideas discussed in this lesson are based on the content standards of the Department of Education. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next lesson.